There is a common complaint in some parts of the Final Fantasy community. These should never have stopped being turn based. And people, like to argue that they were turn based and they were turn based for so long. So it was a little silly and kind of a betrayal for them to switch to more action based combat. And I think this is a little bit of a dumb opinion. I completely understand preferring turn based to action. I also understand wanting Final Fantasy to go back to turn based. I would really love it if they went back to turn, if at least they had some turn based games that they like switched between, and that they made the combat fit the game instead of like deciding one or the other. But I know that's not really how video games are developed. But either way, let's talk about why I think that it's just not a good argument that they never should have stopped being turn based because they're a turn based game. For me, this comes from the fact that Final Fantasy was always about change. Every Final Fantasy game changed. It was always about the fact that they were all individual, they were all different, they were made to be what they are. There isn't a single repeating combat system in the mainline Final Fantasy series. You go from Final Fantasy 1 to 2, and yes, the combat's the same, but the leveling system's completely different. In fact, they don't even have a real leveling system. Yes, with the weapons and stuff, they do, but Final Fantasy 2 is a terrible game. They decided to go with a completely different leveling system, beating yourself up. And then they go into another system. Now, 3 Americas is what was actually 6. And then the actual 3 wasn't released in America until way later, but they were still very different. They continue to go into different fighting systems throughout all the game. All right, we can name a ton of them. In 5, it was a job system. In 6, it was just having a ton of different characters to choose from. Tyrion 7, another terrible system for 8, which was the Junction, which actually it's not so. The Junction system's a great idea, terribly implemented. 9 actually went back to the classics. 10, the sphere grid. We can just go on and on. And then, after 10, which is probably the final actual turn-based one. I know that in 12, there's some... You have the ATB God. It is somewhat turn-based. It's not an action game, for sure. But it's not a turn-based game necessarily anymore. It is more interactive. You're not like, you go, enemy goes, you go, enemy goes. No, you're waiting for everything to build up. And then 13, an underrated combat system, but a great one nonetheless. So every single time it's different. And I understand that it can feel like a just greater, bigger leap when you go and it's finally just action-paced in 15. But when it comes down to it, that's the heart of Final Fantasy. The heart of Final Fantasy is creating a new, unique, great game in the series and making a new, unique, good combat system. Something fun to play with. Now, do they always succeed? No, they don't. Are the action games even that good? It's debatable. But it's still a dumb argument to say that Final Fantasy is a turn-based series and it should always be turn-based. No, it's not. Dragon Quest is the same combat system every single time. And that's what people want. It's Final Fantasy. We want something new. We want them pushing the limits of the consoles. We want them really pushing what Final Fantasy means every single time. I just don't understand people that can't see this as the real progression of the series as a whole. Whether or not you like the progression and where they've gone, but you have to at least accept that it makes sense that they've gone in this direction.